Hello, my name is Dan Johnson and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about steelbooks. It's been a while since I talked about the steelbook collection as a whole, and because we've reached the end of the funding for the animations and there appears to be no Series 9 on the way whatsoever, I feel like it would be a good time to talk about them and go through them, especially now that we're on the way to the 60th, and let's hope that the tradition of making steelbooks for each series or specials comes out as they come out. Hopefully that tradition continues, but if it doesn't, then this could be the end of it as we know it, which would kind of put a bit of a dampener on my collection, where I start off with all these steelbooks and then just end up with Blu-ray box sets towards the end. But I'm very happy to talk about all of the steelbooks I own, and I'm very grateful to have found them. So I'm going to be talking about a couple little stories, maybe how I got the steelbook, what I think of the artwork, and the contents of the thing itself. This may be a long video, so settle in. The first thing we have is this steelbook. This is a steelbook with Series 4, as you can see, and it's got this sort of cool glossy effect with the Doctor and Donna and a Dalek in the background, that kind of beehive look that followed through a lot of Series 4. This is a US release and was kindly given to me by John Fisher about 2 years ago now. So it has all of Series 4 on their DVD standard discs. Obviously won't work on my DVD player, but the UK did not get a version of this. They got a general box set, big thick box set, and later it was obviously released in thinner covers, slimmer covers. But this is something that was exclusive to the USA on, I think, like Amazon or something along those lines. But it's a nice little thing to have in my collection that many people, especially in the UK, don't have. During one of the lockdowns, I ended up spending a lot of time on the internet and ended up buying the Series 5 Steelbook, but it's absolutely huge. So it's the DVD release. They also did a Blu-ray release, and the funnest thing that I find about this release is that on the side here it has limited edition, and they're all numbered, and this is 19,224, which does beg the question, at what point does something just become standard edition? The artwork itself is not particularly beautiful or worthy of displaying, but it's quite cool to have this little strange release that will probably be completely forgotten about in the collection. And now we start moving on to the stuff that's actually on the shelf that I've ransacked over there. And we start off with the Peter Cushing movies. Now, these are the original Blu-ray versions. We have something coming up next, which is a little bit different. The first release is The Daleks. It's based off the serial Doctor Who and the Daleks, the second story of William Hartnell's run. And instead of using William Hartnell, they obviously have Peter Cushing playing the Doctor. And it's just a slightly more expensive version of that show, just to be shown in cinemas and to get as much money as they can from Dalek Mania. The Daleks are very cool designs, and these releases came about, these are Zava exclusives. They were made because they upscaled the film into Blu-ray, and they got rid of all the blotches, and they did an absolutely amazing job to do that. And they released it in this steelbook version. I don't think there's too many of these. I think there's about 3,000. But I think the coolest one out of the two is the one they made for the sequel, which is obviously the Blu-ray for the second story, which I always get the name wrong, so I have to check it. No, I got it wrong anyway. Invasion Earth 2150 AD, which is the second story that they made, and they only made two. But this is the story Dalek Invasion of Earth in the William Hartnell run, which is in the second series. This one I prefer to the first one. The first one has a lot of issues in terms of pacing because the story itself has pacing issues. This one's a slightly more even ride, and there's a lot more cool stuff within this one, and memorable moments and sets and explosions and stuff, so it makes it a more interesting watch. I do really like this steelbook as well because the camera doesn't really give it justice, but there's a beautiful symmetry to it, a nice noir sort of retro-y effect to it, like almost like Art Deco in many respects. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. But after I bought them about 2 years ago, they became obsolete, and that is because they released these. These are the same episodes, the same films, but they have been released as steelbooks, but they've been upgraded to 4K. You could also get a collector's box set, which I didn't really feel was worth it because I collect the steelbooks. But in that, you'd used to get like a poster and a queen and a booklet and stuff like that. The 4K port, the way that the film looks, is pretty good. I mean, I would not say it's drastically different to the 4K, but you can tell that there's slight sort of enhancement in the colours and various other things. So it was quite a nice experience, but I would not say that it would be really, really worth forking out all the money to buy a 4K player and a 4K TV and the right, cords and stuff in order to make it work. Now we've got the Peter Cushing movies out of the way, we go into the main series, and we start off with Galaxy 4, which is the only release that is animated William Hartnell. They did a lot of Troughton, which we'll get to in time, but this is the only release they did of Hartnell. And this is Galaxy 4, a story I didn't actually like very much. A lot of people don't like it. It's famously one of those big stories that no one likes. The animation was pretty good, though, and the sets look great, but I can't really remember it and say that it was a decent story. But it is a very gorgeous cover and really stands out on the shelf with its kind of orangey look. And then we move on to one of my favourite steelbooks and a story I absolutely adore, and that is The Power of the Daleks. I remember buying the DVD back when it was originally released, having not really delved much into Classic Who, but during lockdown, which is when this more came about, I was like, I want to try and get the steelbooks that I don't have, which included this one, The Power of the Daleks. So I went into Kex, ordered it, had it delivered to my house, and it came broken. This was because I was devastated that I lost an eBay bidding war by about 10 pence or something silly like that, just because I thought that I would be safe. There was nothing happening, so I just had like a max bid on, but I didn't really think beyond what that max bid, like whether I was willing to pay past that max bid. I just kind of had it in, left it for several days and thought it will probably get outbidded, but it didn't. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get this. And then the last couple of seconds I was outbid, I'm afraid. But I went to Kex, bought it, and it arrived smashed. So I sent it back, got the refund, tried again on eBay a few more times, lost a few more times, but eventually I did get it. And this one, it was absolutely gorgeous when it arrived. It was in beautiful mint condition. It was practically sealed. In fact, it may well have been sealed. There was no scuffs on the cardboard. The discs were like new. It was absolutely gorgeous. And it's one of my favourite steelbooks. Recently, when I say recently, not too long ago, they released a limited edition version of this set, not as a steelbook, but as a Blu-ray and a DVD, in which they reanimated the entire thing because there was a lot of issues with teething problems, I suppose, when it comes to this range, because this was one of the first ones they did with this team, and it meant that there were things missed, like Daleks scuffling across the sides, weird animation kinks, like bizarre way people get up, and yeah, some of it was quite rough, but it does hold a weird place in my heart, this strange little animation. Then we jump up to the Macra Terror. I probably should warn you, as we go into some of the Troughton stuff, the ordering of it confuses me, and frequently it gets messed up and moved around, and I'm not entirely sure where all the episodes should go in chronological order. So I do mess them up, and sometimes I get them back where they need to be, but they may end up being in the wrong place as I do this video today. So, if I'm correct, the Macra Terror is the first story along in the Troughton run, and this is when animation was getting really good. This is a really gorgeous looking set. I think, in fact, of all of these, this one is the one that I like more on animation than all the others, because I think that with the Macra, you are doing something that on the 60s budget, they definitely wouldn't have been able to do very effectively. And with this one, they took a little bit of creative license and made the Macra more like the script entailed and the original idea entailed, rather than the sort of sock puppety look that they would have actually had in the 60s. So overall, I really did enjoy this animation. I've not watched it for a long time, admittedly, but it is a lovely, lovely release. The next release, I think, that comes along chronologically is The Faceless Ones, which is the departure of Ben and Polly. And then slowly means that Jamie becomes a full-time companion, I think, within this story. And I liked this one at the time. I mean, it is a slow story in many respects, but it's very ambitious. There's lots of cool moments, like the plane flying over the TARDIS, and the people going missing in Heathrow in planes, and the actual monsters are quite cool. I have to say, at the time, I don't remember much of the story, and I remember being a little bit lukewarm towards the entire thing. But it's definitely a release I need to check out again, and out of all of the Steelbooks, this is definitely one of the most unique ones. Our next one is one that I actually have seen quite recently, and that is The Abominable Snowmen. It's a story with the Great Intelligence and the Yetis. A very good story, in my opinion. I did enjoy it. It does fall off slightly in several moments towards the middle, but it does pick up towards the end, and the animation is pretty good. The Steelbook is gorgeous. I love the snow effect that obviously takes place in the Himalayas, so it has to have this snow effect. So I really enjoyed the Steelbook, and sadly this was the last one, I believe, that we got, wasn't it? So it kind of slipped under the radar a little bit, because the funding was withdrawn, and there was the whole story of, oh, that's it for the animations, and then this one was pre-planned and was already coming out. But yeah, I enjoyed this story. And then we move on to a story that most people do not like. Not because the story's bad, because I think the story is absolutely brilliant. I love it. It's Unit, but with the second Doctor. It's like The Invasion. I think it's got issues, but it is brilliant. People don't like this release, though, because it's very clearly a cash grab or a corporate product, less than animating stuff that needs animating, because only one episode in this release is actually animated, because it's the only one that's missing, and it's episode 3, which I didn't think you actually needed to watch, because not a lot happens in it. The trouble is, of course, there was a lot of issues at the time with the animation, because they changed it completely. They stuck with a very 2D model to begin with, which slowly became slightly more 3D and added some interesting elements of 3D as you went along. And then they went all out 3D within this one. I think they did mocap as well, which is quite a feat, and it feels more like an experiment than an actual release. But it's very emotive, it's very over the top, and it makes the episode feel really weird. And it's sort of, yeah, Google the animation if you haven't seen it, just for some screenshots to sort of understand what it looks like, but it's very strange. If I wasn't a Steelbook collector, I would have just sticked with the DVD version. I think this was the release after or before this, but I was in love with the series once again when we came to Evil of the Daleks, a story that is very iconic and has the Dalek Emperor here. They had an awful lot of elements that they could use in this episode, though. Skaro and 1920s house made a very interesting animation, and I think it worked really, really well. So yeah, this one is definitely one of the ones I'd recommend. We're going to take a break from evil intelligences and Daleks and move on to something a little bit more campy, and that is Evil Seaweed. Our next story is Fury from the Deep, a Steelbook, which I believe is the cheapest to buy from Kex. I think it's about £15. Most of the time these things hold their value, or not increase in value, but this one just sort of plummeted for some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why. The animation and the story are both really good. The cover looks quite cool and stands out quite nicely on the shelf. So I do actually quite enjoy this release. It's a very ambitious story, and I would love to have seen what it looked like. If it wasn't animated, I would probably have appreciated the work that they went to more, because we have oil rigs and helicopters and stuff within this story, which make it very, very intriguing. Next, we have a very interesting story, because behind it, there's a lot of politics going on in many respects. There were strikes in 1979, just before they started filming the episode Sharda. Well, they filmed all of the exterior stuff, which takes place in Cambridge, but they did not film the stuff that takes place within the studio yet. Or they didn't film a lot of it, particularly towards the end. And because that was not filmed, they realised that the episode basically had to be scrapped. And this was an episode by Douglas Adams of Hitchhikers of the Galaxy fame. Hitchhikers of the Galaxy? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But this is from season 17, and it was a very interesting series because there's a lot of beautiful creative ideas within this one, and a lot of them come through Douglas Adams, and his is his self-penned story, and it has some beautiful ideas about time travel and regeneration and Time Lords and prisons, and it's all quite a fun adventure, and a lot of it takes place in this gorgeous city of Cambridge. So it works really, really well, I think. I absolutely adore this story. The trouble I had with this release particularly was because it came out and they released it as essentially a movie, but it's a 6-parter, so it came out as like a 2.5-hour film, and with Classic Who, they're not designed for that. They're designed to be episodic. But for some reason, they decided not to release it as an episodic release, and it just came through as this massive film. And then in the season 17 box set that came out the other year, they released the episodes individually, and I absolutely loved it. The entire thing, I thought it was brilliant. I loved the whole idea around the show at the time. Douglas Adams, I think, is an absolute genius. So, yeah, Shada is an excellent story. And as we're talking about excellent things, we're going to go on to one of my favourite episodes of Classic Who, and that is Spearhead from Space. Now, this is John Pertwee's first story, and is the only release that isn't quite the same as the others. This is a sort of Zavi exclusive or something along those lines, and it's not quite metal, it's slightly plasticky than the others, it's bizarre. It's quite a strange thing to describe. But this release came about because this story was filmed on film, which means it can easily be changed into Blu-ray. And they made this release, one of the rarest releases I think that I have, and it was limited to about 3,000 copies, and I was able to buy it during lockdown. No, in fact, I was able to buy it during the summer of 2020. It's an absolutely gorgeous release. The episodes are brilliant. What a piece of history to have on Blu-ray, and of course in a steelbook. We have a massive gap now, a humongous gap. It's just occurred to me, I've done Spearhead and Shada in the opposite way. And I was concerned I was getting Troughton wrong, but I've just put the third Doctor after the fourth Doctor. Yes, this one's gorgeous. This is the steelbook for Series 1, a very expensive steelbook, and one that many people try to get their hands on. It's absolutely lovely, this one. The gorgeous artwork is brilliant, and I was very lucky with this release, I have to say, because I bought Series 2 first. Series 2 is, well, at the time, and objectifiably, in my opinion, my most nostalgic series, and I absolutely adore it. I know that it has issues, but I do adore it. And when I saw that this release came out, I bought it, and I was so happy when it arrived. I thought, oh, it's gorgeous, and I watched all of Series 2 again on Blu-ray, and this was the first time I had it on Blu-ray, and I went back to have a look if there was any more. I was looking for a Series 3 at the time, and seeing when that was going to come out, and then, boom, I found Series 1, still on Amazon at the time, because it hadn't been sold out and hasn't become as expensive as it is now, and it was about 30 quid, and I bought it, and now I'm so glad I did, because I would really be missing this release if I didn't. I think it's absolutely lovely, the gorgeous artwork on this one, and a gorgeous series, of course, with Christopher Eccleston. Next, as I mentioned before, my oldest release, and that is Series 2. Again, gorgeous artwork. This one came with art cards, which you may be able to see behind me, but once absolutely gorgeous, astounding artwork here, and there's a beautiful one on the back with Daleks and Cybermen. It's the release that started us all. It is getting a little bit scrapped up at this point now. I think it's just this edge here, there's a little bit of damage to the paint, but I still adore this series and I adore this steelbook. And so we continue on with Series 3 with Martha Jones, a lovely steelbook once again. This one's quite interesting because originally Derek Jacobi's master was on the back, the Yana master, right? And after a bit of complaining within the fandom, they changed it to John Sims' master, which I think was really the right decision because it feels like his series. And the idea that I love the most about these steelbooks is that when I buy them, I get artwork that feels like encapsulates the series. And as we go through, this becomes more apparent. Because with this one, we've just got this sort of purple look to it, which is very striking and different from the other series, which is nice. But I would not say that it's my favourite of the lot. We can actually move on to my favourite one, or one of my favourite ones, because I say my favourite one quite a lot when it comes to this range, and that is Series 4. It's got this gorgeous explosive look to it, and the back to this artwork is probably my favourite of the lot. Well, we'll see. I can't really rank them. It's like children. It's really difficult to rank. I'm going to have to take the sleeve off for this one because the artwork for the back cover is just absolutely splendid. With Davros, the Daleks, the TARDIS, it looks amazing. As you may know, I am quite a big David Tennant fan when it comes to the 10th Doctor. So, in terms of series-wise, this should be my favourite because this is his regeneration and it has him directly on the front cover, mid-regeneration, and it is a gorgeous looking steelbook, I have to say. The back artwork, once again, is gorgeous, although I do feel like the front's far too dark. It just looks slightly strange, and kind of from a distance, it just looks like a big mould of like vignette with a little bit of glow in the front. Yeah, it's very strange, this one. It's a lovely steelbook, sure, but I'm never quite sold by the artwork. It depends more on the light than anything else. After that specials though, I definitely wasn't complaining about how dark they were, because the Series 5 steelbook is incredibly bright. It has the gorgeous artwork of the painting. See, I was talking about how the artworks kind of mould into the series a little bit more at certain points. This one moulds in lovely. They use the artwork of the Van Gogh painting. I also do like that this one particularly looks like a painting. It's got this sort of brushstroke effect to it, and some of them do have that, and I am always very partial to that effect. But a lovely series, and of course a lovely steelbook. Next we move on to Series 7, which is, it's a bit rough in places, isn't it? But it's not a bad steelbook. There's this gorgeous strong colour of green throughout the entire thing. The images of the Doctor, Amy, Rory, and of course River on the front look lovely, and of course it's got a lovely piece of back artwork as well, which I absolutely adore. But the artwork makes it feel fun and makes me want to revisit episodes such as the opening two-parter. Okay, so John was talking about some of my favourite steelbooks, and I say that I'm going to say this a lot. For the next two, you're going to get it a lot, okay? I'm just going to warn you. Series 7, again, may not be the best series, but is probably my favourite steelbook in terms of design and in terms of format, because this one, like the series, is split up into two, and the two are very distinct, unlike Series 6. On the front we have the Doctor, Rory and Amy, as well as some weeping angels, things that represent the first part of the series, including the dinosaurs, the cubes, the Daleks there from Asylum of the Daleks, or Oswin. And then on the back we have a very different approach, almost like it was a series of its own. And we have Clara again, we have Cybermen, we have Oswin, we have the Great Intelligence, the Whispermen, the Ice Warriors, and it's a lovely piece of design. I think it looks absolutely brilliant, so this is why it's one of my favourites. And then of course the 50th anniversary is a big time for artwork, and we got some gorgeous pieces. You may remember this release, which is designed to look like the moment, and within this set you get 4 DVDs in which you can separate and move apart so that you can essentially change which Doctor's on the cover, and you can switch between Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor, the 10th Doctor, the War Doctor, or the 8th Doctor, and you can switch between them as you will. So it's quite a nice piece of design, but you also have lots of cool bits of artwork. I think the king of making these pieces of artwork for the 50th was Lee Binding, who took on making the steelbook for this year, I guess, for the specials. And doesn't it just look brilliant? We have Daleks, we have this cool epic scale image with everyone on it, and of course the back for this one is a little bit quieter, but it is gorgeous. This is also a release that I'm very nostalgic for, because in 2013 we got loads of cool items such as Night of the Doctor, we got Five-ish Doctors, we got Adventure in Space of Time. We got very cool items during that year that are very interesting to me as a Doctor Who fan, and I'm sure they are to many people, and all that is encapsulated in here. They came out in this box set, which I've just put down here, but getting the Blu-ray version of this was really tricky, so I didn't bother. And when this was announced, I went, oh, okay, we can get something quite cool. But of course, also within that steelbook is also The Time of the Doctor, the episode in which Matt Smith regenerates into Peter Capaldi. So we go into Series 8 with a new Doctor and this gorgeous purple artwork, which I think looks brilliant. An interesting thing about this steelbook, the artwork that they use for the disc is actually different compared to the artwork that you get within the general releases. They've added a kind of purpley tinge, as the steelbooks have this purple, very striking purple look to them. And next we have Series 9. Maybe one day, when hell freezes over. Our next release is the release for Series 10, and Series 10 is a very interesting steelbook because it's the only steelbook that was done as an Amazon exclusive. So most of these have been Zavi, or they've been available, you know, on many different places like HMV and Amazon. But this is an Amazon exclusive, and it came out around the time of Series 10. And I wasn't interested in steelbooks at the time. I didn't even have a Blu-ray player, I don't think, in my room, which meant that I focused for the Series 10 ones in which the two covers went together and made a nice image. I was really focused on trying to get that. So I eventually would buy this steelbook, and I am so glad I have, because it has given me a new appreciation for Series 10, because when I bought it, I watched it all again, and it's been the first time I've watched it in full probably since it aired, and I did really, really enjoy it. Capaldi is an absolutely brilliant Doctor, and you can see him here taking pride of place in this gorgeous portrait, and then on the back you have an image of Bill. So the artwork on this one is probably, in terms of artistically, the best. Dare I say, for the 17th time this video. This is deemed to be one of the worst ones, and I don't think it's necessarily bad. I think it's just far too simplistic for a series that does have a lot of colour and a lot of very interesting artistic material. For example, the promo images have these gorgeous sort of crystal-like artwork to it, and they've gone with a very minimalist design. It's quite a striking image, but I just don't think it quite works, particularly on the back when you just have an image of the companions. And unlike Series 10, when I bought this, I did not watch it all the way through, because I'm not a huge fan of Series 11. There's a few episodes that I do really like Demons of the Punjab. I kind of like Ram, but yeah, there's some real duds in here, like the Sananga Conundrum. And then when it comes to Series 12, they kind of outdid themselves a little bit, because I think the feedback from that steelbook was taken on board, and of course it doesn't really match up to the other steelbooks neither. So they released Series 12 with a very fiery, very cool artistic design, with the Doctor and the Master on the front, the companions on the back. A lovely design, and much like the steelbook, there's a nice parallel to be made between how the steelbooks got better at the same time that the series got better. Now we're coming towards the end, and I think my favourite steelbook for Jodie is this one for Series 13, aka Doctor Who Flux. It's a fairly recent steelbook. It only came out, I say it's a fairly recent steelbook, it's been out a year, but it is a lovely steelbook with a gorgeous portrait of Jodie on the front, and the back with the companions once again. There's a nice pattern with all of Jodie's steelbooks that they always have, the friends, the fam on the back. And now the final release, the most recent episodes that we have, and that is the 13th Doctor specials. So in this set we have Eve of the Daleks, Legend of the Sea Devils, and Power of the Doctor to finish off Jodie's run. And it's a lovely steelbook. Much like David Tennant's, it's nice that we get something that sort of brings her era to an end, and to close it off in a steelbook that feels very much about her, which is nice. The contents of the episodes, I mean, Power of the Doctor is really good. Legend of the Sea Devils is probably one of the worst things I've seen in quite a while. And Eve of the Daleks is good, but does not hold up after watching it several times. But we can all be redeemed by the gorgeous artwork that's at the back of this steelbook. It has Ace, it has Yaz, it has Dan, it has the Master, Daleks, Sea Devils, and Cybermen. It's a brilliant looking steelbook. And so that's it, the steelbook's scattered across my room now in an order that definitely wasn't the one I intended them to be in. Oh dear. Well, I'm going to go fill my shelf back up. I hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you give a like, subscribe if you are new. What is your favourite steelbook? Are there any steelbooks that you're after? Are you still after Series 9, or are you one of those lucky ones that actually has Series 9? If you do have Series 9, post it to me. Please. I'm of course joking, so thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this video, and I shall see you soon. Goodbye.